Yeah, I think we are good to go.
Yeah. Hello, and very warm welcome to everyone for joining us today. My name is Kamala Patney. I'm from a grassroots project called CAUSE, Celebrate Our Similarities. Before we start today's event, I would like to express my deep sadness and condolences to everyone affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. I believe we are all affected in some way, but our thoughts and prayers are with those who have lost loved ones and those with severe effects of the virus and everyone around that's been affected by this awful virus. However, CAUSE would like to stress and impress upon everyone listening, please do take your vaccination and save lives. So as I said, my name is Kamala Patney. I'm the founder of CAUSE, Celebrate Our Similarities. Before I explain a bit about our organization, I'm thrilled and honored to have a panel of professionals who are joining us today on making this event a success. Just a brief kind of introduction to them, and I'm sure that they will explain in detail what they do and a bit more about themselves and the discussions that each one will have. So they are, professionals, particularly in the area of water. So I think we've got the right people on board today. So Anil Majithia, who will chair today's discussion. So Anil is a chair of the advisory board for the Canals and Rivers Trusts East Midlands. Dr. Indrani Lahiri is a senior lecturer at the De Montfort University, as well as the academic consultant for our project CAUSE. So we thank her for her involvement in all of our work. And then we have Phil Mulligan. He's the regional director of the Canals and Rivers Trust, East Midlands. And I want to thank Phil for taking the time out today to join us, even though he's on leave from work today. So thank you, Phil, particularly. So a bit about Celebrate Our Similarities, CAUSE for short. We're a team of 10 who have come from different backgrounds, work backgrounds, to focus on our shared human priorities. So our aim is to bring forward good practice examples and start discussions around clean air, food, water being the relevant thing for today, well-being, mental health, good sleep, equality, personal peace, and climate change. So today's event is very relevant, and it is our first one. So, it is the first live event of this on this subject, but it is the beginning. And we hope that after today, you will stay in touch with us and get involved in all the exciting activities and events taking place, and also the ones that we are planning at the moment. So some examples are that we're planning an event like today's in early April, discussing issues around violence against women and explore practical solutions. In fact, just this morning on LinkedIn, I noticed that the Assistant City Mayor, Rita Patel, has just published a statement about this on behalf of the City Council, citing on unchecked male anger as the running theme in the incidents of violence against women. Just last night, we held an event where 20 people joined CAUSE on a new workshop series called the Peace Education Program, PEP, by the US charity TPRF. And this addressed the very issue of anger. And CAUSE has recognized that CAUSE recognizes that PEP is an exemplar good practice example in relation to personal peace, which we are sharing with different communities. For climate change, today's event is very relevant, and we are discussing with the DMU a training opportunity to share with communities on understanding our personal carbon footprint. During the month of June, we will be holding a series of weekly events on mental wellness, the digital footprint, and healthy eating, and other webinars with our collaborators. During July, we will build on our success of last year during the South Asian Heritage Month. During September, October to December, really, we've got various events planned relating to, for example, the International Day of Peace, Black History Month, Disability Month, all relating to our core priorities and bringing about discussions. So we therefore encourage you to stay in touch with us and register your interest via our email address, which is celebrateoursimilarities@gmail.com. We will put that in the comments section. You can also visit our Facebook page and YouTube channel. So I've already taken up quite a bit of the time already. So let me pass you on to Anil, and I'll just change the slide here. And Anil, perhaps, Anil, would you give us first give us a little bit of an overview about your background? And I know you've been involved in a lot of things over the years, and then we can get a global view on water before we go back into the sort of local and regional context from your angles. So over to you, Anil.
Thank you very much indeed, Kamla, and thank you to you and Cause for organizing this event. It's a privilege to be part of it, so thank you very much indeed. In terms of introduction, as Kamla said, I chair the Canal and River Trust East Midlands Regional Advisory Board. So I gave up my full-time employment about in 2017, and I currently sit on various boards, including their ambulance, NHS Trust Board, Leicestershire Enterprise Partnership, amongst others. And the reason I'm here is Canal and River Trust East Midlands. And Phil will talk more about what Canal and River Trust East Midlands does and how we would love to get communities more involved in our well-being agenda. So I'm honored to chair this discussion. As you say, Dr. Indrani will talk about the global perspective of water, which is a very critical resource. We will get to Phil, who will start telling us about Canal and River Trust and all the activities that are going on under his leadership in East Midlands. And then we'll be having some discussion around it. If anybody has got any questions, please put them through chat. If you can't answer them, you can email through the email that Kamla has just mentioned, and we'll be happy to answer them afterwards. And without much ado, I'd like to just go straight into Dr. Indrani. If you can introduce yourself again, a bit more background, and take us through your subject, please. You're on mute.
You're muted.
You're on mute.
Yes, yeah. Happens quite a lot. Well,
a conference is not complete unless we have somebody who is on mute. Sorry, Dr. Indrani, go ahead.
Yes. Well, yeah, I mean, thank you very much for that introduction, and you know, about your, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation, because I think you and Anil, both of you bring in a whole lot of things that we can actually then embed into our curriculum from a teaching perspective. Because to start with a little intro, I teach in media and communication, so I'm the senior lecturer in De Montfort University, but my research is in digital media and society. And part of it is also about linking UN Sustainable Development Goals. So say, for example, I have been addressing digital divide quite a lot during this pandemic time. We have been looking into mental health, mental wellness. We have been looking into poverty and how there might be some kind of public relations campaign that can be created to communicate with the communities, but also to tell the stories about what's been really happening during the pandemic. So there are a whole range of areas that we are trying to develop work in, but centrally and essentially looking into UN Sustainable Development Goals. So that's the priority area. And we have partnered with CAUSE before, and we continue to work with other national, organizations. So that's a kind of a brief background. But what's very interesting about the topic that we are discussing now is that we don't hear water quite often when it comes to the media, and that's what interested me to kind of look into what does the media say about water for today and tomorrow. Where are we going to end up in, and what the crisis looks like. Is the water represented on the media platform at all? Can we see it? Can we see the crisis or what's being communicated? And amidst the pandemic, I think it's very much relevant because, of course, hand washing is at the core, and there are countries globally who doesn't have access to water, and washing hand is a kind of a luxury for them. So what's happening in that kind of situation? Some of the local governments, like, if I bring in the example of India, you might have come across that report because that was discussed in the recent UN summit as well, that they are going through a crucial phase of the crisis, because millions of lives depend on the resource, and water is quite a basic thing for agriculture as well. So India is very much agriculturally dependent economy, and therefore water is again very central to it. So a recent report that came out, of course, I think it's the Niti Aayog report, and that states that about 21 major cities in India is going to run out of water by 2030. A similar kind of situation, of course, as was represented in the media from a UK perspective, is that we're going to struggle for water by 2050, although there are, it's primarily a rainy sort of area that we live in. So we got lots of rains, but do we actually preserve that? Do we actually conserve that? Do we actually use that water? How about the gardening stuff? The summer is coming, and of course I've seen people watering with hose pipes. It's convenient, it's easy. You plug into a water source and then you go watering in the garden. But the amount of water that gets lost, or when we are doing our, brushing in the morning, and we are washing our dishes, using dishwashers, all very fancy items. But we're consuming electricity, we're consuming water. And, so it kind of brings it back to the very basic discussion about what do we do? Water is very easily available to us. We are using it every single day, even giving not a single thought into what's happening. And the media is not very much into it. So we don't see lots of national newses talking about water and the crisis that we are facing. Yeah, there are reports that come out sometimes, but not centrally. The media is interested in it. So I will pass this on to the two experts that we have here, really working quite centrally on water, and would like to hear more from that. So how we can create an impact globally, but also how we can devise a strategy to address the concern nationally.
Okay, thank you very much indeed for that, Indrani. I think it's a very valid fact that water is a critical resource, but it's not really talked about much, is it? I was reading few facts around the weekend, and I think the couple of figures that really stuck out is, according to UNESCO, over 2 billion people live in countries that are categorized as water stressed. And more importantly, the World Health Organization actually estimates that safe water could actually prevent 1.4 million child deaths. So it is absolutely critical resource, yet not talked about too much, is it? Okay, so we will open it up to a lot more discussion, but first thing, I think we've got a global perspective and a valuable view from Dr. Indrani, and I'd like to just introduce Phil again. Phil, if you can tell us a little bit more about yourself and then take us through what Canal and River Trust does, please.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks very much for the invitation to be here. It's great to see this issue being addressed. I manage the Canal and River Trust in the East Midlands, but I have previously worked within the UN system, so issues of sustainable development and water have been close to my heart, sort of internationally in the past. I think Indrani was talking a lot about water use via the taps. And my job is more about water use on a much kind of bigger scale. So, and also she talked about the media, and actually the thing I think we hear a lot in the media is there's too much water, there are floods, or there's not enough water, there's droughts. And that's real day-to-day stuff for me, because we're Canal and River Trust, we're managing water for leisure, we're managing it for the environment, for well-being, we're trying to control floods, we're trying to get water from one place to another. So we're kind of managing it on a big scale, not at the kind of household via the taps, but you know, it is all interconnected, and water doesn't have the boundaries that we as kind of humans impose on things. So, you know, water flows. And I do like the celebrating our similarities, picking on this issue of water, because every human, you know, that's something we all have in common. We all need water. It's vital for us, and water plays, you know, very different roles. I say part of it, you know, I deal with the leisure sector. You know, other people are dealing with kind of health and hygiene and so on. So that's just a little bit about my background. If I'm going to share my screen now, just show some slides and talk about what the Canal and River Trust does. So let me just do that. Okay, can everyone see that okay? Neil, is that coming through all right?
That's just coming through at the moment on my PC, Phil.
Oh, yes.
Not yet there.
Yes.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So can you see that slide there of canals today?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that is what a lot of people will think of. They'll think of nice, picturesque waterway, people using the water on boats, people using the towpath, you know, a bit of family exercise together. So that's our image, or what we'd like to think canals are today. But it's worth just kind of going back and remembering that this is what canals were originally like, and they were created to move goods around, and they were very busy. They were very dirty. They were very dangerous. In fact, there was no towpath other than for horses to pull the barges, and people, the public, were not allowed onto the towpath. So they were restricted, inaccessible, unpleasant, not the kind of the first image that we saw. And then, of course, when railways really came along, and then roads later, that led to the decline of canals, and there wasn't really an economic viable option for them. Unlike the leisure economy that we have today, that really kind of hadn't taken off. So lots of canals fell into serious decline, and again, uninviting places. You wouldn't want to go there for some well-being. But thanks to lots of enthusiasts, mainly volunteers and volunteering groups, lots of canals were restored. In the East Midlands, we've got a couple of restoration projects, big ones that are really led by volunteers. And it's just fantastic, because that in itself is a great well-being activity, and people trying to restore these canals. So that's you know, how canals got from the industrial beginnings to where we are now. And where we are now really is the creation of the Canal and River Trust. It was a few years ago, but it was the biggest ever transfer of a public asset into the charitable sector. So it was British Waterways, and in 2012, Canal and River Trust were created. And the purpose really is just to protect and manage and improve the nation's canals and rivers for everyone to use. And as a charity, there are so many more opportunities for us to do that and engage the public and communities than there were when it was a public body. So the Canal and River Trust has 2,000 miles of waterways in England and Wales. We've got the third largest collection of listed structures, so that's protected buildings, arches, bridges, culverts. So that's only the Church of England and the National Trust are ahead of us there. We also have museums and archives, and we have hundreds of wildlife sites, many of which have the highest possible protections and designations that you can get. And there are 8 million people who live within just 1 kilometre of our waterways. So they are a fantastic resource that is where people live, freely accessible. There's no charge for going on a towpath, so that they're accessible, they're flat generally, they're where people live, and they're free to use. And we estimate that around 4.4 million visits take place every 2 weeks. And that's people cycling along the towpath to get to work, walking the dog, just going for a little stroll and a sit down, or people on holiday, or boat users, or people paddling. So a huge number of people day in, day out using these waterways. And in the East Midlands in particular, we have 800,000 people who live within a kilometre, and 57% of those households have well-being challenges. So that's really significant, because nearly 60% of the people living close to the water would really benefit from the kind of well-being benefits that can be provided by being by water. And we know that we provide well-being on the doorstep, because research has shown that spending an hour by the water can really make us feel happier, improve our well-being and mental health. And the more frequently we visit, the more that happiness is, and the longer we stay as well, the greater the impact. So more visits, staying longer, just frequently visiting can have a really positive impact on people's well-being and their mental health and their physical health. And we've just seen how many people would really benefit from that. So at the Canal and River Trust, we do a lot to try and get people onto the waterway and enjoying it. So we do things like improving the access. So you've got a set of steps here that are not really very usable, a bit dangerous, and we'll repair them, and so that people can get onto the waterway. We'll put new towpaths in, but we also need the waterways to be pleasant and inviting. So we do a lot to improve the environment. So we have a plastics challenge where we're taking millions of plastic items out of the waterways every year. And we've got volunteer groups. This is a group from Leicester, Good Jim, who run every week and do litter picks for us. So we're trying to make the waterways look nicer for people, beauty on their doorstep, so that they can get the well-being on their doorstep. And we're also trying to improve the way they're managed. So we're increasingly seeking green flag recognition for our waterways. And this is an externally verified award to show that a waterway is well managed. And a really important part of a green flag is the local community involvement in the management of the waterway. This last year we had Nottingham designated as a green flag, and in the year ahead we've got an ambitious challenge of 40 kilometres right the way through Leicester, all the way from Loughborough down to Kilby Bridge. We're going to try and get that all green flag recognised. The waterways are also a great way of connecting people to nature. So even in urban areas, the canals, the rivers provide a lot of wildlife right on people's doorsteps for them to see. And it can be pond dipping with kids and a family, or it could just be walking and seeing a heron or some ducks or dragonflies in the summer. And we also do activities to try and connect people to nature as well, to get people to think about their local environment. This is a slide showing a well-being and mindfulness activity on the water. Getting people active is great for their physical health and mental health. People volunteer. We do a lot of volunteering, hundreds of thousands of hours of volunteering, and it's a great way of using the waterways to connect people to each other, to connect people to nature, to help improve the quality of the waterways. And we have task force groups who go out trying to do maintenance and cutting grass and filling in potholes. And we have lock keepers, volunteer lock keepers. It's very popular. The restoration groups, education volunteers, and lots of events. So these events that we have, they're often run by volunteers, and they're a really fantastic way of bringing new audiences people who are not used to going to the water for whatever reason, it might be not part of their heritage or their culture, or they've never had any reason to go there. So these events can bring new audiences. So we have a program where we get people, kids trying out fishing for the first time, or trying out paddleboarding or canoeing, or coming down to do an art activity. And we run over 100 of these events in the East Midlands every year, reaching thousands of people who will then hopefully, having gained a bit of confidence, having gained a bit of knowledge about the waterways, will come again and keep coming back and getting all of that benefit by being close to water. Increasingly, we're also making this a little bit more formal with social prescribing. And social prescribing is where non-clinical interventions or non-clinical prescriptions are made, often through link workers, so that a GP or someone can have a patient where they feel, look, I don't want to write a prescription for any drugs here. I think this person would really benefit from doing a bit of yoga or stretching or a health walk or something by the canal, and then that can be prescribed, and the link workers then work with the clients and connect them up to organisations like the Canal and River Trust, and we can then provide all this benefit for local communities. And we work directly with local communities as well. In Leicester in particular, we've worked around Belgrave, and we've celebrated Diwali for the last few years around Canal Lock, and we'll do workshops in schools, and we'll make little floating lanterns for the lock. Last year, well, the year just gone, it wasn't possible to celebrate because of the lockdown, but the year before we had a 6-kilometre laser shined across the skies in Leicester, and that really shined a beacon and illuminated the waterway, and just brought a new audience once again down to the waterway to discover it. And there's some other stuff happening in Leicester that I just wanted to mention. Community Roots is our programme in Leicester, where we work with local communities, particularly around volunteering, getting people down to the water, helping with a bit of gardening, bit of litter picking, those sorts of activities to just get communities involved. We have Beat the Streets happening in Leicester this year. That was postponed from last year. So this is where electronic tags are put on markers up and down the waterway, and then you have fobs and you go and you swipe them and you gain points. And this we'll reach over 100,000 people through the children, the schools and their families, many of whom for the first time will go down to the waterway to play Beat the Streets. So that's fantastic. And Kickstart is happening in Leicester this year. This is a government initiative to give young people job opportunities, and we are currently recruiting for 22 young people from Leicester to join us this year. It's a proper scheme. It's wages are paid, and it's also a pipeline then for going into apprenticeship. So this is for young people who are in receipt of universal credit, 16 to 25-year-olds, and it's a great opportunity for them to learn skills, learn social communication skills, team working, as well as working with tools and helping us look after the waterway. And then just in Nottingham, where we're doing some really great work on social prescribing in particular, we've created a canal improvement partnership, bringing together strategic players along the canal, local authority, corporates, community organisations, voluntary sector organisations, developers, and there's over 100 partners involved, and this is really transforming the development along the canal in Nottingham and really making the water the heart of the city. And we also have some EU-funded projects going on. We've got one called Isolation to Inclusion, and this is where we're working with isolated communities and isolated people to get them to create their own activities along the waterway that will interest them. So that project's starting soon. And Nottingham and Nottinghamshire received government funding for a trial in social prescribing, particularly green social prescribing. So we're involved with that. And we've just received another £50,000 last week for Thriving Communities, which again is working with communities to do activities on the water. And I just finally, if this will work, I just have a video to show you.
My Fullness is very much about paying attention to your moment-by-moment experience without judging it and saying, well, it should be this way, it should be something else. You deal with what is, moment by moment by moment. And there's a fair bit of acceptance in that. And you have to accept that you are wherever you are. Once you've accepted that, then you can decide what's the best thing to do about it. And if moment by moment you can decide for yourself, what's the best thing for me to be doing right now? And you make that choice and do the best you can, you're making the best of your life as you go along.
Did you enjoy the mindfulness session today?
Yes, good. Yes, very nice.
What was the best takeaway from it?
The relaxation, actually feeling relaxed, and not just learning things, but feeling relaxed afterwards.
I happen to be looking for work at the moment, and sometimes, you know, when you're getting a lot of job rejections or you're going through the process of looking for jobs, it's nice to just come out of the house and meet people, talk to them, and come out of yourself for a bit as well. I found today really good. We had a session here, all of us in a circle, and we were practicing some mindfulness techniques out in nature, you know, thinking about the sound of the water, the sound of the trees rustling, just really tuning into that. And it's really nice to be by the river. The water is always very healing anyway. It's always nice to be around water. So I've had a really great day today. I'd recommend it to anyone.
So that woman really said it all, didn't she? About the benefits of being by water. She really felt that, and that's at the Canal and River Trust really at the heart of what we're trying to do. Yes, we're looking after these great waterways and trying to protect them and maintain them, but she really encapsulates for me the benefit that we can bring to people and communities by getting them to come down to the water, spend some time there, feel relaxed, feel engaged with each other and with nature. And I think that's really at the heart of what we can do in the East Midlands, particularly for all of those families and households who have those well-being challenges. Thank you.
Phil, thank you very much indeed. I see we've got few comments coming up, but let me just say a couple of words. The first thing really is, Kamla, thank you for organizing this. As you can see from what Phil described, we have some common themes going on in terms of well-being, in terms of happiness on the waterways. This is why I'm so happy. You see, I'm not sure my wife will agree with that, but being so close to waterways, I'm quite happy. So we've got some common themes going on in terms of how we move forward. We do look for work. Our ask, I think Phil and I ask for, our people, our attendees here really is, please go and use it. You have wonderful free asset more or less on your doorsteps. Come and use it. We're doing everything we can to make that better, we make that safer for people to come and use it, and it supports the health, well-being agenda that we're pursuing. I got a couple of comments around social prescribing. I think it's absolutely fabulous idea. We've already worked with Nottingham CCG, and Phil, my ambition really is to extend some of these schemes to Leicester. With 800,000 people in East Midlands living very close to waterway, we need to increase that usage and improve our well-being, right? So maybe before I open up, I'd like to get some reflection from you, Kamla, because I think your point was exactly what Phil and I are fighting with, is not many people know the wonderful work that we do. So perhaps your reflection, and then we'll go to Dr. Indrani's reflection and then open it up for general discussions, if that works. So your reflections on what you heard, Kamla, from both Indrani as well as Phil?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm amazed at the amount of work that you're doing in the locality. I wasn't aware that there was so much work going on. But I mean, I'm interested to know. I mean, I'm one of those community members who didn't know about all this work. So that means I myself have been remiss about getting involved in, you know, knowing about the canals. Okay, I don't live very close to them. But since COVID, I've had wonderful walks by the, you know, canals and the Abbey Park, Watermead Park, I meant, and you know, some of the things that you don't normally see, you see just there. You know, all the birds and all the the boats and everything. And yeah, it's extremely refreshing. I totally understand what you mean, Phil, about well-being. You know, the amount of uplifting it gives you stays for a long time, you know, and that's not to be understated. I think you should make more of that personally. But I'm interested to know how much engagement do you get from the local communities? What have you done to try and get? I mean, I'm just thinking more about the Belgrave community, for example. You know, has it been quite an easy ride to get them on board, or is there some work to be done, Phil?
Yeah, it's tricky for a number of reasons. We have a programme in Leicester to engage local communities, and yet still many local communities in Leicester won't have heard of the Canal and River Trust or still be accessing the waterways. So it is a challenge. We're trying to build slowly. So we've been working around Diwali and around Belgrave, and we've been working with the Belgrave Community Association and with Pravin in an arts organisation there. We work with Leicester Mila as well. This last year, because we couldn't do the Diwali celebration at the Lock, we produced a colouring book, and that was distributed through local community organisations. But I do think we're scratching the surface. We've actually commissioned university research, University of Cardiff, into some of the barriers in Leicester as to what's holding us back from engaging with communities. And then Neil and I had a presentation on that. And, you know, a lot of it is that we as an organisation don't yet reflect the communities where our water is. And that's, if you look at our makeup of our staff and our volunteers generally, you know, they're not coming from the communities. That's why Kickstart is so important for us, because we've got an opportunity here to recruit 22 young people from Leicester who will then be spreading the message, telling people in their homes and their communities about the Canal and River Trust. We know we want to do, through community routes, more stuff that's more culturally interesting to some of the Asian communities in Leicester, you know, thinking about food and festivals. There's lots we still need to do. The good thing is we do have a programme running. However, for the last year, we haven't really been able to do any of that engagement because of COVID. So, you know, we're not where we want to be. But we have seen as well, like yourself, we've seen in some areas up to 400% increase in use of towpaths during lockdown. So there are lots of people who have discovered the waterways now and will no longer be scared of them or think they're, you know, places that are no-go. So we really need to kind of build on that new discovery with activities and, you know, with stuff that's, you know, culturally attractive and appropriate.
That's, I mean, I think I can talk from a personal point of view that, like I said, I haven't used the waterways as much as I have done during COVID. And that's not necessarily as much as I think I should have been. This was only because I was, you know, consciously going for a walk. So how do we capture this? That there is a current, you know, current.
I think it is. It is a big challenge for us. We've been working hard. Lockdown hasn't helped. Phil and the team have been working hard to engage with the communities. We're trying to find out how we better engage with the communities. It is challenging, and my plea to everybody listening to this now or listening to this as a later time or recorded one, if you want to get engaged, involved in volunteering and supporting in any way, please get in touch. At very minimum, please go and enjoy the wonderful assets we have for your well-being purposes. I mean, the hashtag that Canal and River Trust uses, life is better by the water, and I actually believe that. And we do need a lot of community support to help ourselves, social prescribing being one of them. So I think maybe I'd like to talk to Dr. Indrani for her reflection on Canal and River Trust. I don't know how much of this you knew and how much of this is new to you. And from your perspective, how do you think we can go forward and do more?
Hi, yeah, thank you. It's a wonderful presentation by Phil, and I was like kind of quite engaged in the in the kind of, so as I was going through the slides that for that Phil was presenting, I was thinking, well, these are many of the things that we have done, and we have actually continued to do, and go feed the swans and the pigeons and this and that, and have a lovely time, whether they be during the lockdown or before the lockdown. For me, because in the lockdown I was working from home, so I had like not much of a chance to go around the waterways much, but you know what, like I think that there is a lot of things that we can do from a university perspective. Getting the community involved with the hashtag, when you have got that, I think the second thing that you look for is a digital content. So the work that you're doing is amazing. So why, if you have got any kind of links, like where you have uploaded this kind of information, or even feel if you can do some recording that can go out to the university students, I'm very sure that they will be, because we develop campaigns in the classroom where students are working on UN Sustainable Development Goals and looking into the crisis. So one of the crises that they focused on in Leicester was the poverty and food banks and all of that. But we also look for students to get involved locally and to make a difference and to learn from certain projects. I'm not sure whether you have got those kind of projects. I know you're recruiting 22 young people from Leicester, but beyond that recruitment, are there volunteering scopes? Are you able to come in and deliver some of the guest lectures and talking about all of the fantastic work that you are doing? Because plastic is also a challenge, and I believe that although you have got teams helping you out, you will need more people, because when we are going, we do collect litters on the streets when I'm going to drop my daughter off to school, and we walk and we collect that, and we see that every single day you need to do that work. It's not just a month work. So I believe that there are ways that we as a university can get involved, work with you, volunteer, and then of course develop campaigns from within the community as well. So yeah, wonderful. And I think that this is a kind of presentation that needs to happen in the schools as well. It's not just about doing one program around, say for example, around festivals that do matter, but I think what also matters is the consistent approach to how you get this message into the cognitive area of the brains. So it's very much to do with that continuation. So possibly we can think around and have plan, and of course, because cause is there and they have got one of these as priority areas, we can kind of develop something and think about reaching out to schools, because I'm sure head teachers will be up for it. They're quite positive in addressing UN Sustainable Development Goals. Yeah, those are the things that came to my mind, but it's offshoot. But it's wonderful work. Thank you very much for sharing that, and I think the sharing needs to go on.
Can I?
Phil, do you want to comment?
Yeah. Yeah, great comments. Thank you. And thanks for the comments that are coming in as well, especially to Pushpa. Definitely take you up on the coffee morning group that you organise. So be in touch about that. We do work with schools. We have a whole schools programme. We'll often go to schools and particularly do water safety. And that's incredibly important. Unfortunately, last week, a 3-year-old boy died falling in a river in Newbury. It is still very dangerous, even in urban areas. So we do a lot of stuff around water safety. We also, when we're allowed, we have schools visiting our sites, and we'll talk schools through some of the STEM topics around science and maths and engineering and so on. We work with universities as well, probably not as much as we would like to or could, but we do have one of our regional advisory board members who is at a university, and he's connecting us up at Asham. And love to do guest lecturing if that's possible. If you want to send any invites. And I think on the social media stuff that you talked about, we have a whole social media team, and one of the very successful social media campaigns we've run is #PlasticsChallenge, and we've been running that for a couple of years, and that is now about getting local people like you do on the way to school, either doing kind of micro volunteering, just your own picking up plastic, or when we were allowed, we were organising big days and events, and we were scheduled last summer to have a big event in Leicester to do that. We also had the National Citizen Service, which is for young sort of teenager people, and we've run that in Leicester last year with a number of cohorts, and they were working on plastics as well. So look, we're probably doing more than you realise, but clearly, given most people on the comments, are unaware of what we're doing, an opportunity like this is fantastic for us to raise awareness with community groups in Leicester. We're recruiting our new community roots officer, so when they're in post, we'll be able to pick up on all of these contacts and try and work with you some more.
Phil, do you want to also pick up the comment from Barbara about do we survey people? So do you respond to that?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So we do very much, and in fact, Leicester is one of our longitudinal survey areas. So for a number of years now, we've been doing qualitative survey work in Leicester. We have quantitative survey work through towpath counters, and that's how we know. We've got hundreds of towpath counters around the network, and that's how we know how many people are using the network. And they're very clever at working out whether it's a person or a cyclist or a boat going by and so on. But we also have a monthly engagement survey, which is where people are phoned up and they're talked to about the Canal and River Trust, and that's hundreds of people every month, and that gives us really good data as well. And that's both people who do use the waterways and people who don't. And so we've got a whole strong body of evidence, and then we've commissioned work as well around things like the well-being impact, the happiness of being close to water.
Yeah, so I just support Phil in saying we really do get engaged as much as we can with local communities. I think, Randy, we are connected with several universities, but not that much with the Montfort University students, but we really would like to get more involved, and I'm glad Phil's accepted the offer of guest lecturership as well. I'd love to see that, Phil. But anybody here listening, if anybody has got any particular interest, want to get involved, get in touch, either via cause, either via any of us here. I think, Kamla, if you can forward any messages that people want to get involved. I would like to also thank Jal, Ranjan, someone called Radiate Inner Peace. We are seeing your comments. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. I think, Jalia, your comments around using social media to talk more about waterways, the comments around social prescribing, really appreciate those. This is just a start for Canal and River Trust in terms of what we're doing. We have plenty of work to do, but we need everybody to join in with us. I'm just going to quickly shut up and see one or two more comments before I go anywhere else. Thank you again, Mina, for your comment. And again, I really would love to have volunteers. For example, the way Canal River Trust is run is we have the executive leadership team. We're structured into 6 separate regions. Each region is led by a regional director. So Phil is East Midlands, roughly speaking, goes from Newark to Milton Keynes. We have a couple of wonderful attractions, Foxton Lock, as well as Stoke Bruin within our region. And we have Regional Advisory Board, which I chair. We work closely with Phil and his leadership team. So if any of you are interested in joining the Regional Advisory Board as well, please let Kamla know through the email she's sharing there, and we'll be happy to get in touch, please. Any other comments coming from you, Phil, Indrani, or Kamla?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to just make a few comments in relation to collaboration. I think there is huge opportunity here. The disconnect between, like, for example, what I'm saying is I wasn't aware, and a lot of the comments here suggesting that we're not aware of what is going on. and you're desperately trying to get connected to the people, there has to be a route where we can work together to raise more awareness. I mean, Pushpa seems to be doing work already, and we should be working together to build on that, sort of putting different angles to it. But the other thing that I was going to say was that it's very interesting that you're working with Cardiff University. Now, just last week or the week before, CAUS was organizing it, and this is an area that is mentioned behind me, I hope you can see it, is relating to the UN goals. So the one that we're focusing on is goal 16, but also goal 13, which is to do with climate change. And I'm assuming the goal that you're referring to may be the one relating to water. So what we did was we organized, CAUS took the initiative, and we decided that because, and this is one area that we would, really welcome more publicity on, is the fact that our own De Montfort University is the international hub for goal 16, which is peace, justice, and strong institutions. Now, there's only 17 international hubs because there's 17 goals in the world, and 17 universities have been picked. And in the UK, the DMU is the only one. And we think that what we're proposing as part of CAUS is very relevant to that goal. And we want to work with institutions and organizations in looking at all of these, because, we mentioned about, equality as well as well-being, good sleep, and all of those good things, that we should be working together to build that. And I think we have a perfect one on water. I'm so pleased we've done this event today, because I think that opens up the potential. So we invited Nottingham University, which you may be interested in, Nottingham Trent rather, De Montfort, Leicester, Loughborough, and Cymru University, would you believe, right up north, due to our connections. But perhaps there needs to be more. We've just last week made contact with Manchester University and Cardiff University. If we can get people together to actually look at potential projects in relation to all of these different things, we can really get community engagement at a different level. People can see something tangible that's a benefit to them. And I think that's a good way to go forward. Definitely, I really want to build on this from here.
As you can see, Canal and River Trust East Midlands, Phil and his team have been doing wonderful jobs building collaboration with the local authorities, the local politicians, the local universities, and Nottingham is a classic example of wonderful work that they've been doing around not only the local authority, but also the CCGs, the Clinical Commissioning Group for Social Prescribing. So plenty of opportunities. We would love, as a Canal and River Trust, to work with the communities, answer to one or two questions. I think there was a question saying, can people get involved as community champions? And my answer is yes, please. Get in touch. I don't really know what that would involve at the moment, but basically community involvement of any type, encouraging people to come in and use our wonderful resources for health and well-being purposes is always very, very welcome. And we need passionate volunteers like people we've got here listening to us. So please get in touch. There is no such thing as a bad offer. Any offer you make, we'll probably grab it very quickly. So please volunteer as much as you can. We're now coming on to 25 minutes past. We're now coming on to 25 minutes past. So I'm just going to have a quick look at the comment to see if there was anything burning. And otherwise, let me sum it up. I think we've got 5 minutes and round this up. Firstly, I just want to thank Kala for organizing it and the coach for organizing it, and actually share my comments about what Phil said. You're doing a fantastic job. We have lots in common and love to collaborate. My thanks to Dr. Indrani and Phil for your inputs today. It's been absolutely educational, to say the least. And I think if I really sum it up simply, what we've heard is water is a critical resource. You may not hear much about it. So careful how you use it. Yes, please go wash your hands in that, but it is a critical resource. There are loads of countries that struggle with it. Unfortunately, we're not hearing many messages. For some of us who go to India quite a lot, we know all sorts of messages we see in the hotel as to how we can conserve water. The second point we heard, which is critical from Phil, is we have got wonderful assets on our doorsteps. Please use it. That is not just for boating community. That is not just for any specific community. That is for all of us there. Please use it. There is strong evidence that it helps well-being. There is strong evidence it actually helps mental health as well, just spending time near the water. So please use that facility. Thirdly, we can't do this alone. We have a lot to do, cause ourselves, the universities. We need lots of volunteers. We need lots of support. So please feel free. Any help, support that you offer, we will be delighted to grab. So that's the summary. I thank you, everybody who's been listening to this live. I thank others who will listen to this recorded messages, and thank you for the time they take out. I'm now going to hand over to Kamla for final words, and then we'll close the session. But thank you very much, everybody.
Well, I personally want to thank you, Anil and Phil and Indrani, for the wonderful session today. I can't thank you enough for that. I found it very interesting, and I can see lots of opportunities here, which definitely want to take up. I can almost see a potential kind of along the canal kind of well-being cause event happening where we could be doing, you know, like I was saying about Rita Patel, the assistant mayor talking about, you know, anger as a management issue. Well, perhaps the prescribing from GPs can help that process, and I can see lots of opportunities. So yeah, I mean, we've got 2 minutes. I won't go on, but if anybody would like to say anything, you're welcome to. But please get in touch with us. We want you to stay in touch with COS, and we want to actually create a new way of living more consciously post-COVID. We don't want to lose what we've achieved during this pandemic, the good things that we've you know, that we don't lose that, and we build on it as a community. So thank you very much.
Okay, so I think we're at it. Any final points from anybody before we say goodbye? Phil, Indrani, do you want to say anything?
Thank you very much. Honestly, I feel honored to be part of this conversation. It's really good. And already in my head, I'm kind of, you know, jotting down those plans. How am I going to write the email and what I'm going to write in there?
Looking forward to seeing that email. Phil?
Yeah, I mean, I hope very much in the year ahead, when we can all get out and do a bit more, we can maybe have some kind of event in Leicester on the waterway where we actually put it into practice. You know, we can always organise kind of volunteering activities and just bringing people together. I don't know if the Waterside Festival, the Riverside Festival, will go ahead this year or not, but we've been there in the past. But look, we have an amazing platform that is free and accessible, but it's no good if nobody's actually using it. And what today has shown me is we have to do an awful lot more to really let people know in Leicester and beyond that we're there for you, that the platform's there for you to use, and we know there's great benefits if you can come and use it.
Okay, great. It's 1:30. We're done. Thank you very much, everybody, and look forward to seeing you at other events when we do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Thanks everyone for joining us. Thank you. Bye-bye.